My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and beer.
Years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Say community policing, right? What about community dispatch?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the Raspy Dispatcher. Looking forward to another amazing episode. I hope your week is going wonderfully, no matter what day of the week it is. And, I'm about probably like 25 days out from going to Kansas, doing my first closing keynote. I'm only freaking out a little bit. I'm prepared, but still nervous as heck and excited to go out to Kansas, meet all you wonderful people out there, and kind of just experience that type of participation in a conference setting. So if you are heading to conferences, still definitely conference season, definitely take the time to really enjoy that experience. It's very unique. It's very educational, very enlightening, and it is really genuinely a good time. So super excited to be heading out to Kansas very, very soon. Now, before we dive into the rest of the episode, let's hear a word from our sponsors. Today's episode of Let's Talk Dispatch is proudly sponsored by Prepared. Their mission is to be public safety's most assistive technology. Revolutionizing how we handle emergencies, Prepared is dedicated to saving more lives and making our communities safer. Learn more about how Prepared is transforming emergency response at prepared911.com. Our next sponsor is Zybex Media. Since 2020, Zybex has been creating impactful recruitment films for their customers. Zybex Media offers their expertise, providing a full range of media solutions designed to attract and retain talent for all PSAPs. Visit zybex.com/media to learn more. These partnerships help us continue to spread the message that the world needs more dispatchers. Interested in partnering with us? Head to theraspydispatcher.com. For today's episode, we have two incredible guests with a combined experience of over 45 plus years of frontline experience in dispatch. Training, supervision, they've done it all. Regina and Cynthia have spent their careers behind the headset, navigating the highs and lows of the job. We're going to talk all about their experience with that today and more. Hi, guys.
Hi.
How are you both?
Good. Yeah. Yes.
Well, you guys said you live pretty close to each other before we jumped on here. So did you like arm wrestle or coin flip for whose house you were going to go to, or
something like that?
Yeah.
It was more like, hey, want to do it over there? You want to do it over here? Oh yeah, okay, sounds good.
Yeah. She has kids. I don't. So
understandably. I mean, we see who won,
Yeah.
Quiet house. Kids are loud. Let me tell you, my nieces and nephews, I can take them in doses. They're lovely.
Yeah.
I enjoy them, but also I have chosen a quiet home. I come
There's a
home
lot of
after spending a week with them, and I'm like, wow, it's just silent.
Then you know it's real. Yes.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got into public safety.
Excellent. Well, I could go first, and then Regina could jump in here.
Sure.
My name is Cynthia Hudson. I'm born and raised here in Arizona. I'm weird now because usually people in Arizona come from outside of Arizona. So I'm a native, raised in Central Phoenix. And how I got into public safety is I wanted to go to school to be a teacher. And that's kind of rough sometimes going to teaching. And my mom actually became a dispatcher over like about 30 years ago. She's not doing it now, but she said, you know what, I think you'd be really good at it. You should go check it out. And she's worked for the Department of Public Safety, the Highway Patrol here for almost 30 years. She stayed there, but she said, you should come out and test for it. So I said, well, fine. I guess I need a grown-up job one day. Didn't think, honestly, it's because it stayed in the same retirement system. I didn't think I was going to stay there forever. I just thought, well, if I want to go back to teaching in a few years, at least I won't lose my retirement or anything. So I decided to jump in and do it. And believe it or not, I've stayed for, this is my 20th year. So I'm going into it now. So the neat part of our story is I was there. I was in my early 20s, still deciding what I wanted to do. I walked into the dispatch center and Regina was my first trainer. So trained me on phones. And then after you're done with phones, you go into radio. And then Regina was assigned to me. I was lucky to have her for my first 2 radios that I got signed off with. So I got to be a part of Regina's training experience over at the Department of Public Safety. And we have been friends ever since, even us coming, all the life stuff that's happening in between and everything that's gone on back and forth. But we have been friends for 20 years now. Yeah.
So cool. So cool. And how did you get into this, Regina?
By accident. I was a receptionist at the life insurance department at Blue Cross. And my mom called me and said, hey, this small county in northern Arizona, Apache County, the sheriff was looking for a dispatcher / prison matron. That was the actual job title.
Okay. So very like,
yeah. Like, we're going to fill this. And I said, well, how much does it pay? And she said, $10 an hour. I'm in, because I was making $8 an hour or something.
Yeah.
In 1998. So I went up there, discovered that I loved it. It falls right into all of my ADD and ADHD hotspots. Nothing's different day to day. Everything's crazy. And I thrive under chaos, apparently. I didn't realize that at the time. That was way back before touchscreen radios and CAD systems and all the fun stuff we have now. So I was there for 2.5 years, and then I went to the Highway Patrol. And, was there for a couple years before I promoted to trainer, and that's when I got to meet her. So she was easy to train. My next one, I have badges on my liver from my second training. She was light. So I was like, they're all like this? And they're like, no. You got a softball kid.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, it's so interesting how different, you guys 45 plus years of experience in this line of work, how different dispatch looks now compared to then.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
Interestingly is when she first trained me. So when I walked in there at the Department of Public Safety back in 2004, when I walked in, they had just gone to CAD. They had not been on CAD this entire time. They were on paper. They were on locator cards, hand log before that. And an interesting part of our match and our story, and the reason why I think I was so easy to grab it so quickly, is because I was the first trainee ever to be trained on CAD.
Only on
CAD. Paper. No paper. They had to teach me how to do everything. I was the very first trainee to only learn everything on CAD. But luckily, Regina had the experience at Apache County and had CAD before. So she knew it better than most because she had experience when they had cut over to CAD. And I think that's partly why I was so successful, because she had already had some experience rolling it out. So it was a little bit easier for her to train me since she knew. And I was the very first trainee to ever be completely trained on CAD.
And I mean, CAD was such a unique experience, right? Because it was so new, but also that's just a testament to like the trainer makes the experience, right? Like, even that was such a unique situation, but still, if anyone else would have been training you, it would have been a different experience for you in that process.
Absolutely. I still talk about that too when we talk about training, because I really do believe that's why I was so successful, having no law enforcement, having no background, no one in my family, nothing like that, walking into it and being able to do it. I think a huge part of that success was her knowing how to navigate that really, really well for me.
Well, I think some of it also had to do with you having the background learning to be a teacher, though. So you knew what your learning style was. So it was easy to adapt to the tasks. So I know as a trainer, it's important that you teach in all of the different learning styles. And some trainers don't do that. I've seen it more recently with younger trainers. They fully like come into their own, I want to say. So they haven't identified how they learn. So they don't really know how to teach to multiple styles. And if you're teaching to your learning style, then you're missing so much potential there with your trainees, and you're failing your students. Because if they're a visual learner, if I go up to a trainer and say, hey, how does your student learn? And I'm looking at their student and they got sticky notes all over their console. And I say, oh, I think they're an auditory learner. Are you sure? And I know that the trainer is an auditory learner. Like, I don't think you're hitting everything. And I know Cynthia kind of learns in all different styles. So it makes her a good training supervisor, because she can see that and help mentor her trainers now. I think I've always kind of taught that way after watching people learn and trying to figure out how can I get this information, convey the information where it's going to be understandable to the student. I think it's something that we're missing now in training trainers and in mentoring trainers.
I mean, I definitely think there is a piece in dispatch right now where we're now shifting again technology wise. We're getting all this new stuff. We're having to, as someone who's been doing it for X amount of years, having to learn new systems, having to learn new functions. What would you say to folks who are just like, I don't like this change. I just want to keep to my CAD the way my CAD is. I don't want a new login. I don't want none of that. What would you, and it's real, I hear it. And what would you say to people who are dealing with that struggle or pushback with the change being implemented?
It's the whole part that they love about the job is the change. It's different day to day to day. You don't come in knowing that, well, today I'm going to have 10 warrants I need to process. You don't know when you walk in the door if you're going to have a rollover collision with people ejected, or if it's going to be really boring all day. So part of your job is change. And for dispatchers, it cracks me up, honestly, that we hate change so much when it is none of our job is change. So if we have these tools that will make our job easier and faster and quicker, we can get information faster. We should be embracing that change, because it's going to give us more time for jigsaw puzzles and book and playing on Facebook. So, I mean, that's the benefit of Rapid SOS, Rapid Deploy,
and G911,
and
all of that stuff. Smart transcription. Now we have all of that implemented.
Text to 911, radio transcription coming out. So all of these great tools that are helping to simplify our job. We may not have reclassification yet, but we've got a lot of things that are going for us to help make our jobs easier. It's so much different from when I started in '98 that it's not even recognizable compared to what it was like back then.
Yeah. And what I had someone comment on one of my reels on YouTube, actually, and they were like, something along the lines of, if we continue to advance and make the job easier for the folks who are doing it, that there's going to be less emphasis on hiring to fill the seats, because the job is essentially easier to do. And I completely disagree with this thought. Because we're already obviously operating at a deficit, right? And no matter what technology we bring into our centers, our job is so nuanced and so gray area filled that you simply cannot replace us with any type of technology or machine, because of all the what ifs that come across these recorded lines, right? Like, the tech is only going to make the job easier, hopefully reduce the trauma, but it's never going to replace the folks who are answering these calls.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, a phone tree can only go so far.
Right.
I mean, it can send you off to records, but it can't provide empathy when you're trying to get your baby to start breathing again.
Mhm.
So you still need the person-to-person contact, and there's still a human touch that has to be involved. So we still need people behind a mic. We still need people on the phone. Our job is never going to go away. Making it easier for us to do our job and faster to do our job makes it less, I agree, less stressful on the few employees that we have.
Yeah, helps with retention, I would say, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. We
Mhm.
really need to find a much better way of recruiting
Yeah.
new dispatchers. Every agency seems to have weekly, if not daily, ads on social media recruiting officers and troopers and deputies. You might get a couple of ads for dispatchers in April.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It needs to also be a weekly recruiting drive to get
Mhm.
dispatchers in there and interested. Come in and do a sit along. Come see what we do, not just
Mhm.
have it where you have to apply first in order to come see what we do.
Mhm.
So we sign waivers, so don't let them get too close to the screen then if you don't see and see just information. But
Yeah.
they should be getting a realistic view of what the job is, not basing it on a Halle Berry movie or a television show.
Or the raspy dispatcher online. That's one of the things that I say in the one of the sessions I do is, you know, we're gatekeeping the application process. Is like, I exist because we're failing
Yes.
here. You know, like we as a whole industry, we're failing. So people are coming to me because they can't come to you. And I would much rather them come to the people they're going to work for. You know, my scope of practice is just my experience, but I can't speak to every single department, every single, you know, we have a general understanding of what it looks like, but why can they not get this information from the department they want to work for?
Sure.
Why? You know?
You do
Absolutely.
a great job with that, though, because I
Mhm.
refer a ton of people your way.
Yes.
When I'm interested in dispatching, okay, well, you're
Oh.
in Indiana. Here, go look at her. You're going to have all the information you need, the basic understanding. And
Mhm.
they wonder, do I need to study? No, there's not really anything you're going to be able to study.
Mhm.
Take a critical test, or
Yeah.
the agency is so far back they're still using perfects.
Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah.
But yeah, even things like the pre-employment test, you know, I'm a fan of the pre-employment test as a tool. I'm not a fan of it as a pass-fail. I
Right.
just think it's silly. I just don't, you know, I think we're passing up on a lot of applicants who could do this job if they're trained to do it. And I don't think the pre-employment test is the best way to determine if someone's trainable. Now, if they completely bomb it, obviously.
Right.
But if we're like 10%, 5%, 1, I know people who've had to retake it because we're 1 point off.
Wow.
And it's just like, why? Why are we
Yeah.
putting people through that when we could
Yeah.
just see if they could actually do this job, you know?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, what would you guys say it was like for you in the beginning? Moms came through and put everyone on game and got you guys into these roles. What was that like on your first weeks, first days, first, you know, training session?
Oh my God. So my first agency, I was trained in 6 weeks.
Oh my
That was our
gosh.
full training.
Not finished, you're good. You got it.
And I spent the first 2 weeks writing everything out on paper. I had to have everybody's badge numbers, call signs, and names memorized. I had to have all the 10 codes memorized. I had to have the districts memorized, that like beats as they were memorized. So I had to write everything out over and over and over again. And if I couldn't memorize those in 2 weeks, then I was afraid that my trainer was going to throw something at me. She had a reputation for that. She hit one guy over the head with a handset. She threw pencils at another trainee. So I was the only one who got through training without getting anything thrown at me by her. So
Okay.
I was like, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we had CAD, but it was like one terminal, and then we had a dumb terminal that was all of our CJIS stuff.
Mm.
And our radio was little push button, like those old Orbicom ones.
Mm.
So it was a lot of equipment to learn. And when TDD calls came in on 911, we had to take the handset and put it in the cradle.
Oh.
Is that long ago? And E911 had just kind of hit that area.
Mm.
So it wasn't phase 1 or phase 2. It's barely, yeah. So the cell phone companies were still fighting, giving up info back then.
Yeah.
So we would get calls. We were right on the New Mexico state line, so we get calls in New Mexico, and then have to try to figure out where people were based on where they knew they were.
Wow.
So working by myself really late at night. One night there's a rollover on the New Mexico side, and some people rolled up on it, and one person was deceased, one person lost a leg, and the dog was fine. That's what I remember about that call. But they were in New Mexico. So I was trying to call New Mexico, answer other 911 calls, and deal with these people on the phone who, for some reason, just much like today, there's a couple. The wife called and the husband called.
Isn't that such a weird phenomenon? You guys are standing next to each other. Like, it still happens. That's so weird.
I can't talk to you both. Yeah,
Yes.
I can't talk to you both. So,
Yes.
one of the other memorable calls I had was an older woman. I've told you this one before.
Right.
And an older woman who called and found her best friend deceased the next morning, and I guess her best friend's head was kind of lodged between the tub and the toilet. And I was trying to get her to do CPR, pull her out to start CPR, because we were all EMD certified up there. And she said, "Oh, honey, I'm not doing that. I'm not pulling her head out of there. We've been friends for 60 years, but there are just some things I'm not doing." And I was 26, 27 at the time.
Wow.
I got off work that night. I called my best friend and I said, "If you do not pull my head out from between the tub and the toilet, I'm going to haunt you. I'm going to haunt you for generations.
It's true. You better get down in there. You better.
I don't care how blue I am. You just pull my head out."
Yeah. You didn't leave me here.
Yes. Along the same lines, I mean, back then it was different, and you were required to know, I guess, the general information a lot more. I could still recite mileposts and freeways and which directions and stuff, because to know it, because your mapping and your resources they're
Great then.
yeah, back then they were helpful, but you had to rely on what you knew, really, from experience in your training and what other people in the room had gone through over the years that said, "Oh yeah, this is where that thing is. If they tell you this is where it is, that's the milepost, or that's the turnoff to whatever road they're telling you they're on."
Yeah.
And that's just the stuff you had to remember, because the mapping and the information was coming basically from people who either had the experience, because you couldn't rely on your tools. And I mean, I hate to say it too, CAD wasn't as reliable. It went down all the time, and you had to be able to pull out your maps and read them to know and what was happening. So I took a detour to go from teaching into dispatching, but I mean, it really truly is my calling, and I'm so glad that I did, and it worked out for me, and I've been here all this time since. And I still think to myself, well, it's never too late. Maybe I'll even go back to teaching 20 years. Who knows? But I know this is really where we're supposed to be. And
Your degree's this close.
I know, tell me about it. But
So close.
but over the years, as technology has grown from where we started, definitely, we've seen, and there's been lots of different calls that have stood up to me, just rollovers and people that either have lost their lives. And I ended up marrying. We're both married to officers. So I don't know if we should go on a side note now, but so I ended up leaving the highway patrol and coming over to the city that we live in. And because my husband did that too, we both worked for the highway patrol. My husband did as well. That's when we met and got married and everything. He ended up leaving and coming to the city that we live in. So when they had a supervisor position in dispatch over here, I applied for it and I moved over here.
Very cool.
So we follow each other. We still work for the same agency now, my husband and I do. And he's been doing it for over 21 years as well. And then Regina.
My husband came over to Goodyear about 5 or 6 years ago. He failed the first time he interviewed because he was very angry then. And then the second time he tested, he wanted to go shoot a competition instead. And I told him, "No, you're going to go test. I'll go shoot the competition. You go." So he did, and he was number 1 on the list. And so he got the job. And then I followed him over 5 years later as a supervisor. So
Oh, very cool.
Both supervisors of the highway patrol, but
Yes.
Yeah.
And came over here too. And the reason I was just taking that as a little side now is a lot of that experience and then what we had going on over at the highway patrol. It is very different when you come into the city sometimes.
Yeah.
The good thing is that we were both familiar with it. We had a lot of experience working on both sides of it, and our husbands worked for the city that we both went to. So we got to stories, and we were a little bit more familiar with what was happening before we both jumped into the dispatch side and were able to become part of the city as well.
Yeah.
So we really enjoyed that and coming back to all hanging out together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, working with your best friend. I mean, that's a good day, you know?
Yeah.
And mentor and trainer and all these things. And how has that impacted your career? And why do you think these relationships in our centers, because we know historically there are toxic centers and, you know, it's a tough work environment for many reasons. Why are these relationships so important for our centers?
Sanity.
you have that person that knows what you're talking about. You have that person that could empathize with you, sympathize with you, understands the day in, day out, especially since we dealt with the same people. We knew what we were going through and that type of stuff too. Personally, I have always appreciated Regina for her, just her strength in, we've always been cheerleaders for each other, 100%. I have to say that right now. We are not that girl relationship where we're jealous of each other. We are 100% lifting each other up, and we truly do. We encourage each other, and we also go to each other when we need to be checked. Like, what is going on? Am I being too sensitive? Am I overthinking this? Why do you think this, that, and the other thing?
What do you mean? Supervisors are never wrong.
You know, or what's my best approach here? What should we talk about? Hey, let me throw this off of you. And even when we weren't at the same agency for a while, we still had those conversations. We still made it a point to meet up and have coffee and be in each other's lives. Because we knew that we needed to make sure our friendship stayed strong, because we needed each other to lean on and to have each other to do that. And even now, it's still, that has not faltered, has not changed at all. We really do lean on each other and lift each other up for our sanity, and also just to support each other. You need that support. And more so as an adult. You don't have those adult friendships that you could count on. You know, they're usually just acquaintances or people that you just do that superficial stuff with, that, oh, everything's great and my kids are this and they're doing this and here's the activities, and you move on. But I've always felt that I was able to share way more than that. And you need that outside person too.
I mean, it comes down to who do you trust. Dispatch centers are not exactly known as places where gossip does not thrive. I think that's like our part-time job. Like, we'll just make calls and then we'll talk about you behind your back. I think it's has to do with all that type A personality in one room. Like, we get idle hands and whatnot. They decide that they have to come up with some story. There's nothing behind it. There is no big story. Geez. So keeping each other in check, definitely, I think that has a lot to do with the trust that we have in our relationship. When I was still at DPS and she was at Goodyear, a lot of the reason I came over to Goodyear was because of the culture at Goodyear. I was finding myself more and more unhappy. What I was doing. I loved the people that reported to me, and trying to turn a culture around on your own is extremely difficult. So to a place where the culture is, for the most part, extremely positive. You don't walk into our dispatch center and not get greeted. So everyone on the floor will greet a complete stranger when they come in. Hi, where are you from? Let us show you what we do. Would you like something to eat? Because our radio tech brings in full-size candy bars. So, like, what are you trying to say, Nick?
Shout out to Nick.
So, I mean, even our managers, she'll come through and ask what's going on and what's happening and any issues. So everybody's very hands-on and friendly, which, depending on what agency you're at, you might not experience.
Yeah.
And that should be something that's the norm in our centers, but it isn't. And some of that, I think, is because we don't weed out the toxic employees at the beginning. We let them fester and infect others. And instead of calling them on the carpet when it happens. So
you guys spoke to something that I think a lot of supervisors would appreciate and don't hear enough of, is just kind of like we supervisors get put in these roles and then they kind of get forgotten about because they're expected to do the thing, to know the job, to move forward, but this relationship you guys have created where you're able to bounce things off each other and ask, like, am I tripping? Am I wrong? Like, can I do this better? And be able to have those honest conversations with each other. And I imagine if you do get called out and you're able to go to your people and say, I was wrong, or I could have done that better, or, and I think there are a lot of supervisors who struggle with that balance of saying you're wrong doesn't mean you're a poor supervisor. It doesn't mean that you don't know your job. It just means you're a human in this moment and you want to do better next time. So what would you say for supervisors who maybe don't have that person to bounce things off of, or maybe new and trying to find their footing in this role of how to deal with the human piece of like, yeah, I'm a supervisor, I need to be authoritative, but also like, I'm a supervisor, I'm going to make mistakes. How can I own that to my people?
Well, I actually have learned over the years, now being a supervisor for over 10 years, yes, I made mistakes in the beginning because you're new and you do want to make sure you're doing everything correct and putting your hand down and this is what we're doing. But I have learned over the years that taking responsibility and having those conversations with people that said, hey, this is the decision I made in the moment and here's what I should have done. So I either apologize or say next time I'm going to do better. And that's gained a lot more respect than you would think. And it gains a lot more respect on both sides of the table. They respect the supervisor, me, Regina, whoever it is that you're having the conversation with, because they saw that they had enough respect for them to be treated as an adult, to be treated as a coworker, to be treated as a person, instead of me just saying, well, oh, well, and I recognize it and we recognize it and say, oh, yeah, we probably need to do that then. So that way we do build a relationship and a foundation on trust and respect that could then move everything forward in a direction we all want to go. And if a supervisor doesn't have that person to be able to bounce those things off of, then go out and look at YouTube and read books. Regina, we both encourage each other to read a lot of leadership books and things of that nature to kind of bounce stuff off. Go and take classes on the NINA and APCO websites and be able to do that too, because a lot of people are in that same exact position and they've learned from some of those things or having conversations as well.
So college courses too that you can take on organizational management and leadership. Some of those are extremely helpful. Some are a little bit repetitive after a while, so it beats the message home. Harvard Business Review, if it's $120 for a year for an annual membership. Tons of information in there on leadership, on strategy, a couple of good books like Simon Sinek. I love him, so I'll read about anything he puts out. But the videos are perfect because my attention span is that of a squirrel. So TED Talks are perfect. They're short and sweet, and you get the message. As part of our light. What else? What other thing was I thinking of? I know I'm constantly with books, and I don't read them from beginning to end. I just flip through them and find something that I'm looking for, and chapter and have it work. I think the biggest thing for new supervisors is give yourself grace.
Yeah.
You're gonna stumble and you're definitely gonna trip over your tongue. Think before you speak.
Yes.
And if it's something that has emotion behind it, don't say it.
Right.
Wait 24 hours before you say the thing, because you're gonna say it much better 24 hours later and you can take the emotion out of it.
Right.
You have somebody to speak to, whether it's a spouse, a friend outside of work. It doesn't necessarily have to be a dispatch supervisor that you're speaking to that is the person to bounce ideas off of. You might have a friend who's in the corporate world somewhere, or your friend could be a waitress. They know how to deal with people too.
Amen. That's a job I couldn't do, let me tell you.
Right? We all deal with people in some respect. So talk to somebody else and then think about how that message would come across if it was being given to you and how you're planning on giving it. Is it going to come across as accusatory? And if it is, then the tone needs to change and the message needs to change because nobody likes to feel like they're being accused of something, especially if it's something corrective. So, because usually it's something little. If you're correctly, if you're getting something at the beginning, then it's a training issue usually. So it's a slight correction, and how it should be dealt with. That's how an issue should be dealt with. And a simple tap on the shoulder, talk to them at their console. Hey, I noticed you did da 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 da. Why did you do that? Can you show me? And get an explanation for why. I think we don't ask why enough. But there may be a very good reason why they're doing something that we wouldn't do, and they're always faster or better, and are stuck in the way, stuck in the olden time, the way we've always done it.
Yeah, the way we've always
isn't the best way anymore. So what we think is incorrect is not incorrect. It's still within policy. It's just not the way that we would have done it. So,
that's very true. Like, I remember I have a distinct memory of coming right out of academy, hitting the floor with my trainers, and I was taught in academy to do a thing a certain way on the computer. And then they were like, why are you doing it that way? I was like, I just taught us that in academy. They're like, well, no, I don't do it that way. We're going to go do it this way. And I was like, what? What is going on here? But, muscle memory. I'm doing it this way. I'm going to teach you to do it this way. Totally fine. But there are new ways with our systems and softwares that the new folks are coming out of these, academies and whatnot knowing because they just went through it. So
yes,
that's totally valid.
Well, and we were talking before we came on about some people who have a little bit of a generational communication issue. So one is my generation, Gen X, and the other one is a bit younger. And the way that they communicate is different. Well, you've got supervisors now who are, what's behind millennial, Gen Z?
Yeah.
That are Gen Z now.
Yeah.
And with Gen X employees, they're not going to communicate the same way. And the message is not going to be relayed correctly if they don't understand that and work towards a center. So some of that really comes down to that and the respect that people have to remember to give each other. Gen X, man, we were taught by boomers. So you do it this way because I told you you're going to do it this way. And that's the way it is. So, buttercup. And it's the worst way to train people because there's, I want a hug, man. If I get, I have to
want a hug, I want a snack, and I want a tequila shot afterward.
So I have to call her for a hug. And because she was a cheerleader. But
I think you're right. I've noticed this week even, I've had 2 callers, and I laughed after I took 2 callers, kids, like teenagers, calling about a party with underage drinking.
Oh.
Right? So first of all, they're snitching out their friends. Like they get to run away and then they call snitch. So let's talk about that. But the way they reported it, they're like, I was just at this party. It's a lot of underage drinking. It just felt really unsafe. And I just think someone should go check on them. And I was just like, what? Like never would I have called the police and told on the house party.
Right.
It's a generational thing. We're having conversations. We're learning to communicate differently. We're allowing folks to communicate, differently than our parents allowed us to. So I'm seeing it in callers as well. So we're definitely going to see it in the folks who are working in and supervising us.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's part of our retention issue, though. Also, not learning to communicate to the generations. I mean, it used to be 20-year gaps, and now we're at what 10?
Yeah,
Ish,
shorter,
maybe even shorter. Yeah.
So if you're learning to adapt on the fly on how to communicate with people, then they're going to be out the door. You're not meeting their needs. And
more importantly, they can go somewhere. And I think departments don't get that. Like, you are not the prize department. Like, unless you work really hard to be, like, in a broad statement sense, like, you could be doing better. And I could literally at any point go find somewhere that I think is doing better. Like, the options are plentiful. So let's treat our people well, within reason. We're not going to make everyone happy, and that's not the intention, but there are some things we just brush over as organizations, don't address, don't fix, don't take the time to acknowledge is a problem when it is. And these concerns are valid, and people do leave because we don't fix the problems.
It's not always money.
Right.
I mean, sure, sometimes it is. If you can afford your rent, then that's an issue. But if you're getting paid comparable to the area, you're in the middle someplace even. So pay your bills, but you don't feel appreciated in the workplace. I don't care what generation you are, you're not going to want to stick around. If you feel micromanaged, you know, do your job. You've been very well trained. All of our agencies train really well now.
Yeah.
So if you're being told how to do everything, every single step, and you've been on 3 or 4 years, you're going to leave. You don't feel appreciated. And I don't think that we give some of our employees the respect that they deserve in that way. So if we stop talking to them like they're our kids or a 5-year-old or a newbie, then maybe they'd stick around a little bit longer. So, or we take the time to sit down with them and say, ask them stay interview questions. Those are so big, and I don't know why people don't do them. It just so good. And exit interview questions. Great, cool. Now I know why you left.
Yeah. Exit interviews are so funny to me, and I think as I've grown as an adult in my careers in general, like I used to think, oh yeah, an exit interview, but now like as a full adult, I'm like, what is the point of this exit interview? I don't understand them.
I don't actually think anybody does anything with the exit interviews.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean,
like that's an HR box we're checking, and I don't like when we just check boxes. I think it's don't just check a box with me. I don't, I want intentionality. I want to know that something is actually happening with the information we're providing. Like, and again, we're not going to fix everything, but I like to at least see someone out there with some spackle trying to, plug a hole.
Exactly.
Oh, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the other one. There's tons of motivational stuff on LinkedIn. Sorry, squirrel. That like even the stay interview things, that's what reminded me of it, because I might have snipped somebody's content from there about questions because I like the questions. So he used to ask employees what they thought about on their way to work, like what they listened to from the time they woke up till the time they got to work. And some of them said, I thought about quitting. Some of the answers that I got were pretty revealing. So, or I came to work in complete silence because the radios were so crazy and the phones never stopped. That kind of stuff keys you in on how stressed they are going to and from work. If they say, oh, well, yeah, I'm just happy. I listen to Disney tunes on my way in. Okay, well,
well, we're going to put them back through psych, and we're going to make sure that's the one we got to worry about.
That'd be our
all the rainbows. Yes.
But it's fun, because it's true. There is a different, like, I don't like my job every single day. Like, one thing I'm honest about on this platform is like, hey, this job ain't for everyone, and I don't always like it. There are things we need to work on and change. And I actually saw someone on TikTok who was a dispatcher, and I wanted to stitch their video, but they had the stitches off, and they were just like, I'm a 911 dispatcher and I hate my job. And it's like this 2-minute rant about just like how they don't like it, they don't enjoy it, but they're stuck in it right now because they have a family, they have kids, they have all these life things that are happening that they need to have a plan to exit before they exit, but they do not like this line of work. And I'm like, valid. Like, valid. Like, this ain't for you. And it's not saying that this job ain't for anyone. It's saying for you, this job ain't it. And I'm here for that. For the folks who get into this line of work and they're in it 6 months and are like, this isn't what I thought it was gonna be. I don't want to do this. By all means, find your exit. If you're in it 5 years and you're like, this is the moment, I don't want to do this anymore, find your exit. Like, thank you for your service. Like, you gave 5 years to the community. Like, that's amazing. But there is a level of, we need to be happy doing what we're doing, whatever we're doing.
Right.
And historically, people are like, just come. I even had a dispatcher. I did a funny post about coming to work and hating it. And they were like, sometimes you just got to sit down and be quiet. And I'm like, not anymore. Not on my page. I mean, this was a parody, but yeah, no, we're not in a world where we're just going to work unhappy anymore. And we shouldn't have to be.
Correct.
No. Yeah,
Correct. And we do agree with that wholeheartedly. Regina and I both, when people have come to us and say, they're struggling or what's going on, we really do try to identify, is it the job? Is there something that can help you come and find the passion again? Because you were passionate at one point in order to stick around for all the rigorous training, in order to stick around to learn all of this. You had to have some type of buy-in to want to do all of that, right? 100%. So, when someone comes and says, it's just, I don't know what's going on, those are conversations we do like to have, because is it something we can help with? Or is it that tough conversation that we've both had with people that say, are you sure you want to do this? And why are you still here if you still feel that way? And what can we do to help either figure out something in the department or go somewhere else or whatever it is? Because we don't want miserable people to come in and be around other people, and that misery spreads. But at the same time, that's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
You're I'm not saying we don't want it around. We don't, misery loves company kind of thing. I'm saying in both aspects, for your own self. Don't be miserable. Yeah. If you could do something about it, and what can I help you to help that and help you grow and whatever it is it going back to school? Is it finding a different place in the department, or what is it that we could do to help you? And we have to watch for that too, because it's not just, oh, I hate this job. It can be something else.
Yeah.
And let's figure out what that is, and we can work on that.
Yes, they're phone and sick, and then they build up resentment with their peers. It's a huge vicious cycle that if it doesn't get broken at some point, then it just gets really ugly.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to your guys', mentality, and I would imagine ability to supervise. Is like, I think as I was a manager, I did social work. I was a case manager for 24-hour care. And so I understand the forefront of this person put in their notice, and I'm thinking what their last day is and that hole I have to plug, and how is this going to affect the schedule? And it's hard as a supervisor to put that on the back burner when dealing with people. When dealing with people, we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to make a hard decision, and not to worry first about how it impacts me and the schedule and the rest of the folks who are going to be here. So just you guys being like, well, how do we help this person transition? If transition is the key, if that being the first conversation speaks volumes, because that does need to be the first conversation. And I mean, we say it all the time. I would imagine you guys say it. It's like, if you call out sick because you're sick, this, if you die tomorrow, they will figure it out. It's a machine, it's a business, it is all those things at the bottom, foundationally. The people make it what it is. But at the end of the day, the phone's going to keep ringing. So how do we take care of ourselves? How do we take care of those people and help them transition out if that's where they're at in their life?
And I don't know about you, but I would rather work short than have a miserable employee there.
1,000%. Yeah.
It's a lot of work. Yeah, that is a lot of work for everybody else too. You're creating more work for your coworkers when you're sitting there
miserable.
Yeah, really, it is.
Everybody
think
feels
about
it. And it's all gross.
Yeah, and half the dispatch center's windows don't open, so you can't even air it out.
Right.
Yes. Well, What are some steps that you guys believe are essential in turning that morale in our centers?
Appreciation goes a long way. And that would be my first step is even when, and I know this seems so little and everybody keeps talking about that, but if you tell them, hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for working that overtime shift. We appreciate you for being here today, whatever it is. And actually looking at them and saying hello and goodbye and recognizing people as a person, start there because you'd be surprised how many people say, oh, when I go in, I don't even think anybody talks to me. They don't even know I'm here. Or that would drive me absolutely nuts when people say, oh, I didn't even know you were sitting there in the background. How do you not see somebody or you don't know your coworker sitting there? They're in this room. I know the room's big, but you see their name on CAD, they're answering the phone and you don't even say anything to them. You don't have to be best friends, but you can acknowledge that they're there. And
I'll go one step further. Thanks for calling that toe for me.
yeah, exactly.
Hey, yeah, thanks for not forgetting that toe. Whoops.
Yeah, it goes a long way too. And you have to make sure that you're seeing your people. Being there. I mean, I know I actually came from a generation though too that work is important, but I have realized too that recognizing them as a person outside of work and knowing that they have stuff going on too is important too. People want to talk to you about that sometimes, and just being able to listen. And maybe that's all you needed, is they just needed to tell you what was going on in their lives to get it off their chest, because that was really bothering them, that they're sitting there thinking about all of this. But once you tell somebody, it really does help you. It helps you focus more on what you're doing and doing that too. So
I mean, EAP is kind of a new-ish concept for, I guess, the people that started when Jesus was a baby like me.
I think I am taking that. That will forever be a statement that I use from now. Find a way to slip it into my Beyonce. I don't know how I'm gonna work it in, but that's mine now.
I mean, there wasn't EAP when I started,
Right.
and if there was any kind of debriefing or whatever, they didn't include dispatch in it. It wasn't until 2008 that I got invited to a real debrief, not a critical incident debrief where I got blamed for stuff, and the investigator had to go, no, dispatch is here as a courtesy. You guys screwed up. So she did everything right. The actual debrief from an incident, that didn't happen until 2008. So I'd been a dispatcher for 10 years before I'd experienced anything like that. And my actual division, I still feel failed me in some respects with that, because I was never, I never felt closure from the incident. So that I worked. So it's a big deal for me if I have an employee who works a shooting or works a line of duty death or a line of duty shooting or a rollover collision where children are injured or killed. Something that affects them, where I notice within minutes or hours or days that there's some type of work effect or something going on with them, I'm going to refer them to EAP right away, and try to get somebody there for them. And they're going to the debrief, whether patrol invited them or not, making sure they get an invitation to go, because it's important for dispatchers to have that closure. Supervisors, in my mind, act as part of that EAP kind of structure, because we're the first point for them. They may tell a friend, oh, this call really affected me. Guarantee that friend's going to come tell a supervisor, hey, so-and-so struggling with that, because they don't know how to keep secrets in there.
I can't hold this. I gotta get rid of it.
Somebody's telling us. So it's kind of one of our jobs. I mean, if our job is to take care of our people, and I strongly believe that it is, I communicate up the chain, but my job is to support the people below me. To support them, they need to be mentally healthy, and mentally healthy if they're not taking care of themselves from big things that happen outside of work, big things that happen at work, even the little things. Maybe a phone call that wouldn't have set somebody else off was just what pushed them over the edge, and that's why they need to speak with somebody. So you just never know, and I think that's really important. It's another part of that recognition, and knowing your people. And a supervisor used to keep notes on every single employee, not only their dates of birth and anniversaries and stuff, but favorite colors, favorite foods, places that they like to go on vacation, things that they talked about in the meetings that didn't have anything to do with work, so that she could ask them about it. And like a couple meetings down the road,
Yeah.
oh, you tell me you were going to whatever, Hawaii for vacation, and go. So she remembered things because we all squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, little things go such a long way, like and I think we forget that. Like, it doesn't have to be a grand show of, appreciation. It can be something small, tiny, and little, and, it carries a lot of weight.
It does. It does. Listening to people. Like I said, I think that's one of the hugest things when people build that trust with you, and keeping your word and understanding that, hey, they just want to talk. Doesn't mean it needs to go any further than that. You need to be that sounding board, and you need to have that trust and respect in their relationship that you're not going to tell anybody else. You're not going to talk about it with the floor. You're not going to mention it to anything, because once that's gone, it's really hard to get back, if you ever get it back.
Yeah.
So start there. Start building that trust and respect individually with everybody, and take those baby steps to show appreciation to everybody. And you don't have to be everybody's best friend. I'm probably not everybody's best friend as a supervisor either, but I think working towards building all of the trust and respect, that they do respect me. They don't have to like what it is, but they do respect me, and they will trust me with whatever it is that they have going on because of that.
That's another thing. The floor always has really good ideas for improving centers.
Yeah.
They always do. And they get overlooked and not asked. If supervisors went to their staff and said, what do you guys have as ideas that would that would make your job easier? Improve your job, something realistic. I can't get you a $10,000 pay increase, kind of my span of control.
Yeah.
But tell me what would make your job easier. And sometimes it's something simple, like, can you replace this floor tile?
Yeah, we recently asked for a walking pad at work.
Yeah.
Like, we can't get out. Like, we'd like to, be able to stroll. Like something so simple as that.
And simple, yep. And then ask them, like, okay, well, what are our paths to afford this? Where are we going to put it? Go through all the pros and cons, have them make the argument for it, and pitch it then the supervisor can pitch it at a supervisor's meeting, and 95% of the time it's going to get approved, because the floor already knows their argument backward and forward. You're not making it up as you go. You're not recreating the wheel, so to speak. So a lot of good ideas from the floor and by doing that, you build so much more trust from the people that are working the radio, because you prove that you were listening to them and you took their ideas. And if it failed, then you go back and say, all right, manager said no, and here's why.
Yeah.
And what can we do to improve it so I can pitch it again next month?
Right.
You're giving them buy-in to improve their workplace. So that's a really big deal.
Yeah, I agree. Well, as we come to a close, the last question that I ask everybody is, what advice would you give someone who's considering a career in dispatch?
Just do it.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
If you're even considering it or thinking about it, take the leap and try it, because if it's something that's drawn to you and something that you actually gave it more than 2 seconds of a thought, then it probably spoke to you somehow, some way. And it might be something that you would be totally blown away with, that you would really like.
If one agency won't let you do a sit-along, check with a couple others, because somebody eventually you'll find a path where somebody will say, yeah, come in. We'll put a headset on you and let you listen for half a night.
Heck yeah.
It's more than just going on a ride-along with cops. You see, it's a completely different side to see.
Right.
Sure, ride-alongs are fun, and they go and chase people and whatever. But our job's so much cooler, because
1,000%.
you get to hear the pre-phone call chit-chatter, which sometimes has swear words.
I was just going to say.
Then the during phone call,
you get to hear all the cool stuff. And they start yelling at you.
And then the post-phone call chit-chat.
It's one of those things I was just going to say, and it's one of those things too, when people start talking about it, and we're old, we're like, oh, it has great benefits.
Hey, don't sleep on the benefits though. Like, for real. Like, it's something you don't think about, but it's true. It's true.
We're old, we go in there, but I do tell this to the younger people too, when they start talking about things like that, is I was in my early 20s when I started this, did not think this was the path I was going to, but I'm so glad that I did. I met my husband, we got married, we had our kids, we've done all of this. You can doing shift work, you can't have a life. I know people say that all the time. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if it's 24/7. You can have a life. You can have a wonderful life, and it's exciting and it's new. And that is one of the really great benefits of having this job is you have no idea what the next day is going to bring, and that just keeps you on it even more. It just makes you coming back for more because you just don't know. You just don't know what's going on with it. So, and that's a really good, exciting part of it.
And I guarantee if you start a job like this and you have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off instead of the weekends off in the beginning, because you probably will, and you're on graveyards, bars are open on Tuesday. And if you live near a college town, the drink specials are even better.
So there you go. Having a fun.
Look, if anyone's listening who works in a college town, like that's the line. That's going on the HR flyer, you know?
There you go.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom. 45 plus years between the two of you is no joke. So thank you for everything that you've done, everything that you're going to continue to do, and the way you lead. I mean, it definitely shows even in this hour time span. You guys are doing wonderful work.
Awesome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for.
Thank you. All right, everybody. That was another amazing episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch. Regina, Cynthia, again, thank you so much for being willing to jump on here. So you gotta remember when you're in these supervisor roles, when you're in any type of role where you are looked up to or leaned on, that you're human first, and you got to really lean on that aspect to be able to let people know, I get it. This is what we got to do. I need to do this better, so on and so forth. So if you're a supervisor out there, having a rough time getting the buy-in, getting folks to commit, to getting folks to understand your position, feel free to lean on people, reach out to anybody in the dispatch space world. I have never seen such a group of people who are willing to provide feedback and give insight. So definitely reach out. We're here to help. We want our centers to be a great place to live, work, thrive, all that good stuff. So until next time, everybody, stay raspy. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Dispatch podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the show, or maybe even submitting your own story, you can do all that and more at theraspydispatcher.com. Until next time, stay raspy.